It's been a while. Glad to be back with James Wedgeworth and Real Estate Update. Good to see you.
It's good seeing you. I always enjoy doing the
Turbulent times. The stock market
times.
Up and down a lot of influences there. Talk to me, though, a little bit about this impact of the stock market on real estate and the differences between what goes on there and in real estate.
Well, we're shooting this, filming this program right the first week in March. So if anybody's been following the stock market, I think you may follow it more than I do, but I think we had about a 10% decrease in the indexes the last week, which in theory means that people lost 10% of their income. Not exactly, because all stocks don't do that. The question is, did people's houses go down 10% last week? No. It's not a direct correlation. It's not a one-to-one correlation. Over long periods of time, it has a very positive effect, but not over short periods of time. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. In other words, if I see a 10% drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, that doesn't mean if I have my house on the market, it's going to be worth 10% less.
No, it doesn't mean that.
Okay. However, what about the impact with regards to sales? You do have those second home buyers that come to Hilton Head Island. Do they get a little more antsy about saying, I'm going to make that investment when the market is turbulent?
There's an old saying that says, confused customers never buy. Obviously, there's a lot of confusion. There's also a saying that says markets don't like uncertainty. So that affects our second home market more than it affects our primary market. Now, if the stock market, if we had 4 weeks in a row that it went down 10%, it would affect the market. But 1 week doesn't affect it that much.
Okay.
But it will over time.
If this keeps going on for a while, you're going to see more of an impact.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the difference as far as when you say real estate won't go down the 10% that the market does, then do you get people that are going to say, I'm going to sell right now before it tanks, let's hope it doesn't, and I'm going to invest in something else. Would they look at a real estate investment versus being in the stock market, bonds, or whatever?
A lot of people do, but sometimes they don't think that way. What they usually do is, if they sell their stock, they just hold the cash, and then they decide later whether to buy a second home with it, or they'll decide to put it back in the stock market at a later date. But most people don't make the decision right away. Now, a lot of people ask me back a month ago or 2 weeks ago, they would say, we don't understand why my house isn't worth more because the stock market's an all-time high. Shouldn't my house go up in that? So I always tell people it doesn't track one-to-one. So if we had a week where the stock market went up 10%, that doesn't mean your house went up 10% in value.
It'd be a little crazy if that happened, wouldn't it? I mean, you wouldn't mind if it was on the upside, but
I love it.
It doesn't work that way.
So it doesn't work that way up or down. So if the stock market goes up 10% in a week, your house isn't worth 10% more. If the stock market drops 10% in a month, your house is not worth 10% less. It's not a direct correlation. A lot of people think it is. And it does affect what we call consumer confidence.
We're in a little shaky period right now with, I don't even want to say it, COVID-19 and the market. And so that confidence for some people is a little bit shaky. Have you seen that yet? Now, we're first week in March right now, so things could change.
We have seen some of that, not as much as you would think. The question is, people that put a house under contract in February and are closing April the 1st or March 15th, I've heard a few of those people backing out. It probably affects us more of people that are on the island today and are looking to buy, and they go, ooh, maybe I should wait a week, maybe I should wait 2 weeks. I had a lady tell me the other day, she said, I'm going to wait a week. I'm going to wait a week to see if this kind of settles out. So it does affect it, just not as much as people think, either up or down.
Well, what's interesting is when you say there's not a direct correlation, if you look at investors, okay, in the stock market, there are those that buy and they buy for long term. You know, they've held the stock since 1980, okay? So, you know, they've seen the fluctuations, you know, what happened after 9/11 or the ups and the downs and the great rises and falls. So they may sit there and do that. Is it the same, do you think, for real estate? Is it a long-term investment that is just as fruitful, so to speak, if you're not, you know, needing to sell tomorrow, I guess?
Most people view real estate more long-term than they do stocks. mainly because they're not as liquid. You can't call.
Turn it around.
I mean, you can't call me at 2 o'clock today and me have your house sold at 2:15. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, if anyone can do it, right?
If there's a way to do it, I'd figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not as liquid, and most people look at real estate more long term. Now, there will be people, when you see prices drop, you'll see people come and say, hey, now's a good time to buy because I'm looking long term and I've always wanted to have a place at the beach. You know, my wife wants a place at the beach. In fact, we call, I might have used this phrase before, second home real estate, we refer to it as an investment with personality.
I don't think you've used that term with me before, but I like it.
Yeah, if we go out and look at property today, I will.
Okay, okay.
I use that. What I mean by that is, I give you an example. I had this couple that was looking at Lansdowne Villa and Sea Pines. And the sunset was going down, and we were standing out on the porch, and she looked at her husband, and she said, honey, if we buy this, this will be our only investment with a personality. Now, what she meant by that is, all their other investments were stocks, and you don't go down to the company spend the weekend. Yeah. You know, we're going to go down to AT&T this weekend. We own stock in that. Mm-hmm. So there are people that look at it as, you know, as an investment, but it's something they can use. So therefore, it does have personality.
It's tangible. It's something you can enjoy. It'll be something that you make memories with that investment if you have family coming down. So it's much different.
We always, when people look at real estate, one of the questions we ask them is, do you have family that will use this? Mm. Do you have brothers, sisters? Do you have children, grandkids? Would they use these things? So a lot of people buy, you know, they think it's a good investment. They hope it's a good investment, but they get a lot of use out of it too.
I have a question for you. When or if prices do go down and you say people will then say, hey, this is a buyer's market for me to come down and get that home or villa. Yeah. Is there more activity in the lower end, like 500,000 and below? Do you see it happen with the more expensive homes because all of a sudden they've gone down in price? Is there any way to predict? That's your question. Is a lot of people do say now's a good time to buy, prices are down. You can kind of predict it by inventory. Yeah, we're going to talk about that kind of in length in the next segment, but you really see a difference as far as inventory and how it will affect prices and days on the market. And you've got a formula that I want to talk to you about. Inventory now, and let's get into it a little bit before the break. Inventory now, where do you see the most inventory now here as of the beginning of March on Hilton Head Island?
It's mostly in the higher prices. We have a larger amount of inventory in the higher price ranges, less inventory in the lower price range.
And for you, what do you consider higher prices? Or what does the buyer consider as high? I guess it depends what you can afford, but what would be considered a higher price
basically home? $1 million and above is the higher price homes.
Okay.
They're a little slower than the houses at $400 to $500, and we can discuss that.
Good. And when you say $1 million would be higher price and up, would $1 million, I mean, maybe there's no way to tell, would $1 million home sell more quickly than a $3.5 million home?
We actually have studied that, and we could have a 3-hour session on it, and I've got all the numbers on it. But yes, the higher the price of the home in the market that we're in now, the harder it is to sell, the less it brings, the longer it stays on the market. There's just not as many buyers for $3 million houses as there are buyers for $1 million houses, and there's a lot more buyers for $500,000 houses than we have for $1 million houses.
What about the whole psychological nature of when you price a home? If someone wants to sell it for $2.25 million, would you ever say, you know, you might want to list it at $1.995 because it would move more quickly, or does that not happen?
That does happen. But it's usually not by what they think it's worth, it's by what the market would tell them it's worth. So what you do is you look at similar houses, similar locations, similar size, similar condition, and you say, here's what I tell people. Play like if you own a house, you're a buyer for the day. What would you pay for your house in the market? So I can show you 5 houses, and you can say, I thought my house was worth 2.2, but that house over at 2.2 is a better house than my house. It's 2
I bet
years
that's effective, though.
Well, actually, I hate to say this, but I've actually taken people out before and said, here's the competition. What would you pay for your house today after you look at the competition? They go, I got you, I got you.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I remember a story you told me once before where someone had a daughter or relative in real
Oh my
estate
gosh, I
that
can't
was
believe
not,
you
remember,
remember
see, that wasn't local, and they came down and you did exactly that. And she said, you know what you're doing, because she thought it was too low price.
I never will forget that. So a lady, I never forget, a lady called me and she said, I need to sell my house. And I said, here's the price of your house. Her husband passed away. Her daughter was a realtor in Chicago, called me on the phone and said she's going to turn me into the South Carolina Real Estate Commission for underpricing her mother's house. I said, well, let's do this. When you come to Hilton Head? She said, I'll be there in 2 weeks. I said, we'll take the house off the market. I'll let you determine the price. We went out and looked at 5 houses. After 3, she said, I owe you an apology.
There you go.
You're right.
We're going to take a break, James. When we come back, guess what? If you've got a house in Sea Pines that's exactly like mine in Hilton Head Plantation or Port Royal, why aren't they priced exactly the same? There's something going on there, and James Wedgeworth is going to tell us. We'll be right back.